You are listening to the Ready PDM Network.
Today's episode was brought to you by Eigenworks. Most companies don't know why they lose deals, and few know why they win. Eigenworks can tell you why. With the buyer as hero approach, Eigenworks gets deep insight into the reasons organizations make buying decisions. The product, promotion, and sales insights provide Eigenworks clients with a significant competitive position in their marketplaces.
Are you ready?
Hello, Ready Product Radio heads, and welcome to the final episode of Ready Product Radio for 2015. This episode is a recap of the many excellent guests and topics we have had during the first 15 episodes. Think of it as a mixed tape of highlights from 2015. Ready Product Principle number 99 is, make time for reflection at the end of a sprint, the end of a year, the end of an assignment. Stopping to reflect and spend some soak time with our past experience allows the learning of the past to crystallize and inform our approach to the future. Enjoy the show. Ready Product Principle 0, which is begin with the customer experience.
I've been there. I'm rolling through my 37th time.
Wow.
I do a couple times a year, right? I do the one for the family and one for just me. But in fairness, the one for just me tends to align to some sort of conference, right? I'm rarely just sort of picking up and jumping on a plane and going to Disney. But I like to talk about the Disney hug in many ways, right? So you can call that the user experience, or just call that experience in general. I know when I land in Florida and I get on the Disney Magical Express, from that point forward, I don't need to be in control. You're in control the vast majority of your life. You have to determine when you're going to get on the train, when you're going to go there, when you're going to go to work, when you're going to eat. When it comes to Disney, you've done a lot of pre-planning, but as soon as you land, you get on that bus, they take care of you. You now have no worries. You don't have any money worries because you've already prepaid. You have no quality worries because you know everything you go to and all your experiences are going to be the highest quality possible. They exist for your entertainment. They exist for your satisfaction. So for your weeks-long time, they're really giving you that hug. Every single cast member, every single interaction exists for the purpose of pleasing you, which is, you know, exactly what you want from a product management experience.
So, Alan, I think pricing should be strategic way more than it's tactical. But I think pricing is tactical way more than it's strategic. And here's what I mean when I say those two things. On the tactical side, usually we think of tactical as, should I raise or lower my prices? Should I accept this deal or not? How do I negotiate with my sales force to get them to sell the product at the price we want? And I think of these as all very tactical things that we deal with as a product team a lot. On a very strategic side, though, is once you understand pricing, when you understand how your marketplace uses price to make a decision between and amongst your product portfolio and your competitors' product portfolios, then you start to use pricing to help you formulate your product portfolio. For example, if you're targeting different market segments, and what I see companies do all the time right now is they build software applications that are configurable so anybody can use it. And what we're essentially saying is, here I've got these 20 different market segments. I want all of them to be able to use my one thing. All you have to do is reconfigure it. There are some of those market segments that would pay 5 times as much if we had that tweaked for their purposes, and some market segments that would still buy it, that might buy more if it were, you know, half the price, whatever it was that we were charging. And we should be looking at those specific market segments and seeing what their willingness to pay is, and how do we build the product portfolio so that we capture the right willingness to pay from it.
Ready Product Principle number 5 is you are not alone. Product is a team sport, and a key part of being ready is asking for and offering help when it is needed. We're sitting at Starbucks here. That's hence the background noise. And basically, this is our last meeting in the program for the mentorship. So basically, just wanted to do a debrief for the benefit of future participants in the program. So, Tushar, I think we started this back in March. So I think we had basically 6 monthly meetings. Is that correct? Do you want to
maybe just give us an overview of the approach that, because it was really you that decided as the mentee how you wanted the program to run. And I thought it was a very novel and interesting approach you took. So do you want to just give us an overview of the approach that you recommended?
Yes, okay. So basically, we started, as Alan mentioned, we started in March, where, first of all, before we started off, TPMA had done a great job of mapping right people with a similar background, so that the mentor and the mentee are on from the same background, where, they can learn the more and understand more about product management area. So I met Alan, and I have requested him, rather than just talking about product management concept, maybe from pragmatic marketing framework, on a theoretical basis, and ask questions on a theoretical basis. Rather than doing that, why can't we actually do the product management? What it means is, why can't we actually work on the real idea? And I had one idea which was there with me for a long time, and I wanted to work on it, but I needed a guidance and guidelines from someone who has been there and done that, and have a lot of experience in the area of product management. So and this was a perfect timing, where I know I got a chance to meet a person like Alan, and he has actually helped me work on that business idea, understand different aspects of it, and based on that, over the period of last 6 months, I've been able to develop quite a comprehensive go-to-market strategy for that business idea. It idea was initially the intention was to build work on that idea as an academic exercise, but at the end of the session, I can really feel that I should take this idea seriously, and take this
Ready product principle number 17 is borrowed from Darwin. It's not the fittest product or product person that always wins, it's the most adaptable one.
What's interesting is I took a couple of years off in the middle of my career to go back to school for interior decorating, because I was like, I've had it with this software thing, software game,
Yeah, career number two kind of thing.
I thought, it was my version of my midlife crisis. I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, but what I found interesting about the design part is it was cool, and to be able to know how to put a living room together or something like that is a skill that I'm glad I have. But what I liked the best about that job was understanding the customer's problem and figuring out how we could solve it.
Right.
And then I stepped back and thought, hold on a second. Isn't
Doing
that why I love
management.
product management? And
Yeah.
no matter what I do, even interior decorating, I treated it like a product. But I really found that I really do love software for that. And the idea of building a market and to really understand what customers, I love delighting customers. Like the idea that you can, have all these problems that come at you from your market and from your customers, and then you can have them collapse in your head to a solution, and then work with a dev team to get that delivered to market, and marketing team for that matter. It's I never get tired of it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great. So you're a VP now. A lot of people that are probably listening to this podcast are earlier on in their career. And a lot of times I know, talking to those folks, they're thinking about, okay, what is my career path in product management? So can we start by, what do you think are the key attributes that make for a successful, say, somebody transitioning from, it could be a QA role, it could be a technical documentation or pre-sales.
Yeah.
What would you say, would be a good kind of self-checklist they could go through to say, yeah, I could probably be successful in product management?
Well, I think drive is a really big one. To start there, to be driven to take on responsibilities even outside of your realm. The best, I've seen product managers come up from all sorts of places, and it's usually the curiosity and the customer focus that they start from. Even if it's a matter of, if you're in QA or you're in, whether it's technical documentation, to get involved with the customer project and really try to understand the problems that you're trying to solve there, and get lots of exposure to those problems. Product management is a generalist kind of role. You have to dabble in a whole bunch of stuff. So, that type of customer curiosity, it's not about running a good schedule for a dev team. It's not about writing good requirements. I think it is about, first and foremost.
Ready product principle number 25 is borrowed from Robert Persig. The product you're actually working on is a product called yourself.
And I guess the bit I would add, because we've been kind of talking kind of hierarchical within a product management function, and again, the philosophy at TELUS is you cannot be a great like business owner if you don't have the diversity. So don't be afraid to take several laterals before you're seeking that next promotion. Like as much as you say, hey, I've got deep expertise in one particular area of product management, you can't argue that someone who's been in product management also perhaps had a channel function working the retail sales or had a call center operational piece. They're going to be more well-rounded and more likely to be able to talk more diversely about kind of the greater business benefit and have a broader sense of what the needs are if they've had multiple roles. Better product managers are ones that have had experience from different vantage points across the organization, and those are the people that are likely to be considered first and foremost for leadership functions. And that honestly, that's a change from when I started my career, with where a lot of depth of experience, like kind of you just worked your way and you're going to get the next one. That's changed a lot, and I think that speaks to just the complexity of the world that we're in and the ability or the needs of organizations to be much more well-rounded and considering multi or diverse skill sets when they're hiring their leader.
Ready product principle number 36 is partnerships equal product propulsion. Just know when to do tango and when to do judo.
Imagine a pyramid where acquisition is at the top and sort of ecosystem is at the base, and you'll do one acquisition every year or two or something like that if you're at a larger firm, and you might do hundreds of sort of ecosystem low touch partnerships at the bottom of that pyramid. And so I think there's a variety of things that help you be successful at using partnerships to build out a product strategy. One is to understand where you're playing in that pyramid. Obviously, if your product's at an alpha level, maybe you're not ready to go sign up hundreds of people to your API, for example. At the same time, when your product's at an early stage, you may also not be ready for a deep kind of alliance, especially with a larger firm, because they're going to essentially, one way to think about a larger firm from the standpoint of a product manager is it's a distribution engine, it's a photocopier. So if your product's still a hand-drawn facsimile where you're using the pencil and eraser to move the lines around every time you sell it, it's not going to work too well in the photocopier. So you sort of have to think through those things. And then there's sort of an adjunct space of forming or joining industry consortia, which can be a critical aspect of a product strategy for distribution, for removing barriers to entry, for taking away someone else's profit zone by making an industry consortium that makes it free, and all those kinds of things. So there's a whole bunch of tricks of the trade from the partnership standpoint that should be part of the product manager's arsenal.
Yeah. So let's unpack a couple of those. And I can certainly speak from my own career that I've had some experiences in a smaller organization, partnering with an Oracle, some company of that size. And you quickly realize that they can throw 10 people and meeting you to death. And then all of a sudden you've got no time to focus on your core business. Is that kind of one of the pitfalls to watch out for?
Yeah, very much so. I think, oftentimes, the partnership strategy from a small firm does get led out of the product team, sometimes in partnership with a sales or channel team. And there's kind of a sense that you really want to meet with the product team on the other side of the table. And I actually don't think you should necessarily even do that. Of course, always meet with everybody. Yeah, right. That's you never want to burn relationships and so on. But you have to sort of put yourself in the shoes of the large company product manager and think about what he or she does all day. And for the most part, what that person does is think about how to fine-tune their distribution system against already deployed targets supported by investment dollars that are also fully deployed. So that person doesn't have a lot of time to think through what your widget is or does and to guess about whether that's going to be a good investment. So oftentimes the faster way through the cycle is a little bit counterintuitive. Sure, meet with those people and everything, but look to see how you can spend your time creating a common customer. And sometimes that's even done via you make a demo of your product working with theirs, without even talking to them. they've got an API that you can access, you don't really even need to have a conversation. You can just create that demo. Sometimes a great hack is that their marketing department will be talking about their large company product plans, at various venues, and they'll be seeking proof points. And you might be better off being the demo of that proof point through the marketing department than trying to go straight at the product strategy guys back in headquarters here.
Ready product principle number 7 is nail it before you scale it.
People always say we have a sales execution problem. I think that's usually bullshit, if I may say so, because salespeople execute. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know a salesperson who doesn't execute, and if they don't execute, they're gone, right? Exactly. So salespeople execute. So usually what you have is a problem of what's called now in the lean startup language, product market fit. Right. Fit between the product and the market. Right. Okay, so very early on, the founders, like the whole lean startup approach is that the founders need to be doing customer development alongside product development, and got some great examples out there of most products have a certain amount of that done up front. The more you can do up front, the better, and it is good for the founders and the builders of the product to do that up front. And then you hit this stage where ultimately you got to go to market with something, right? And once as a product vendor, you become the seller and they become the buyer. All of a sudden this totally different dynamic comes into play. You're the seller, they're the buyer, and all of a sudden we're in Venice in 1452.
Yeah, we formalized our roles.
Right, we become these archetypes.
On guard, kind of thing, right. Touche.
Right, I will hide from you, you will hide from me, we will barter, we will do all these things, and that's fine. Like, that's just going to happen.
Dodge, parry, thrust kind of thing.
Yes. And so this stuff is as old as the hills, and it's not going to change. And so that's the point where the richness of the information about what's blocking you from making the sale decreases, and that's when you're in that sort of nail it.
Ready product principle number 23 is it's better to outsource critical product work than ignore or delay it.
I think it's finding a way to turn what you've learned. It's great to listen. I mean, we do believe in listening. But unless you do something with that, unless there's an action that comes out of it, then you've wasted everyone's time, including the customers. So beginning with a plan in mind that says, let's have a roadmap that says, what will I do with these findings or this information when I get the answer? If you don't know that, don't start until you do. I think that's a big thing we help people discover is, just like you do with the product or with a new feature, our new feature is, how will I use that new feature, the customer information, when I get it?
Yeah, the other thing that we've been thinking of and talking a lot about with people is people are there's this whole we got to fail faster, learn, there's an expression, you win or you learn. And so there's, what can we learn from our failures? What can we learn from our failures? What can we learn from well, we think more companies need to be looking at what do we learn from our success? So, we coined a phrase that you suggested maybe might be copyrightable, and that'd be great if we can,
root cause failure analysis.
Root cause success analysis.
There you go.
Okay, because our friend the other Alan Armstrong does does a lot of win-loss analysis, and oftentimes he gets the pushback, we only want you to talk to the accounts that we lost, and he will emphasize that it's also important to talk to the ones where you win, because you can be fooled by your wins unless you truly understand why the customer chose to do business with you, to buy your product, to buy your service. You don't know whether that's a repeatable and scalable thing. There are more startups get killed by by not knowing why that first user came on board with them, because it's likely you don't really know the reason. You you're patting yourself on the back saying, man, we made the greatest whatever. And in the meantime, the customer is saying, boy, dude, that was really cheap. We would have paid 10 times that. And you just don't know.
Ready product principle number 17 is become an expert at understanding the differences between bad products, good products, and great ones. In other words, become a product hunter.
Yeah, there are a lot of product hunt meetups around the world, and you're right, Toronto was the first one. And I think at this point we're probably one of the largest ones. Product hunt. So the way that it works really is, we have Product Hunt has a very engaged community of fans. And I would say there are fans, and then there are super fans, and probably crazy people like myself organizing these events. And it just happened that, what I think happened is that producthunt.com is awesome. You go on the site and you see a lot of cool products. But I think it's also interesting and relevant to see products made in your city. And people want to meet makers in their community. And a lot of connections made online are also awesome to kind of like strengthen those when you meet offline. So we just brought the concept offline for Toronto, and many other cities did the same. So I think that, again, it's not necessarily just a North America phenomenon. It's something that's happening around the world. It's hard to describe what it is exactly. I just think it's passionate early adopters and makers coming together.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect description of it. Now, can we talk about the structure of a typical meeting? And I don't know if they're the same, but the one I went to, there was certainly, I think there was a keynote speaker, excellent there, but then there's a number of companies that demo their product. And I believe you've got some criteria as well in terms of selecting those companies that demo their products. So maybe talk about the typical agenda and how you choose your speakers and how you choose the companies that you offer to demo, because it's such a great venue, it's to be able to share your product with, like you say, 400 people. So talk about the mechanics a little bit.
For sure, absolutely. So the format is very, very much along the lines of what you're describing. Okay. We do have one keynote speaker, and usually it's someone who's been in product for a long time, someone with a track record of products that they've launched and shipped. So again, I would say briefly, product leader in the community, someone who many people want to hear talk on challenges and opportunities when it comes to building products. And then in terms of demos, it's usually 3 demos, and these are actually pretty hard to pick, because what we do is we usually have a topic or a theme around an event. We had some events where it was very general. We did not pick a theme, but it gets harder and harder to do the whole demo selection when there is no theme, because again, there are so many amazing products in the city. So that's why we started picking themes. And for example, we had a retail product theme, and this coming event at the end of the month will be focused on real estate products. So we pick an industry, and then we really, this is a very interesting effort that goes behind the scenes. We'll look at all products in this industry, all technology products in Toronto and surrounding area, people and companies solving problems for the industry. And then we look at certain things like, how new is this product? So is this the product that a lot of people already know about, or is there some novelty element? If it is an established product, perhaps they have a whole new release coming up that they can show to the community, and that would be a good way to share their progress. So we just really we're looking for this novelty element. We want the demo to be something that people in the audience haven't seen before, and that's very important. Also, what's important is to have the presenter to be someone who's very close to the product. So usually it's the product manager or the founder, or really someone whose job is, to launch this product. And they're usually the ones who have the best insights when it comes to what it took to take this product from inside.
Ready product principle number 36 is, the only constant in life is change. Be ready to transform, pivot, and reinvent yourself and your products as often as needed to stay relevant. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Sasha. So let's start with the resurrection of the tech scene here in Ottawa. So Ottawa was once the darling of the tech community here in Canada, Silicon Valley North, as you were saying in your talk, lots of direct flights to the valley and whatnot, and then went through a bit of a valley, and now it's coming back. So can you talk a little bit about how that's happening and maybe why it's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I was saying in my keynote this morning, July 2000 was kind of the peak of the Ottawa tech scene. Right. We had over 20,000 Nortel employees and contractors. We had another 10,000 at JDS, another 3,000 or 4,000 at Newbridge. And, the center of the world here really revolved around what at the time was the fiberoptic.com bubble, as well as the telecommunications bubble at the time. And, we centered around a few big conglomerate companies. And, when the fiber optic bust kind of happened and the dot-com bust happened, for the next 10 years, especially as Nortel filed for bankruptcy, the ecosystem that revolved around Nortel being the center of gravity here in town really took a toll on the local tech scene. And certainly employment fell down. Our VC money for startups dried up. But the beautiful thing, if there was one, was that the skill set that came from the implosion of what was Nortel and JDS and some of these others left a tremendous amount of skill sets on the street. People who had to reinvent themselves, who went on to formulate startups. And 15 years later, we've got 1,700 tech companies here in Ottawa. I think that's twice as much as many of the other prominent centers around the country. And we've seen a real resurrection of the tech scene here with Ottawa becoming a center of excellence for software as a service, network function virtualization technologies, and of course software. And most recently in the last couple of years, I think with companies like Shopify, which is perhaps a new Canadian tech darling, Kinaxis and Halogen. We've seen some really great companies go IPO and raise some great public funds. And you're seeing, people flocking back to the Ottawa scene as a center of excellence for some of these great companies that have come up. So it's a really exciting time for Ottawa, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. And somebody who's moved back from Toronto, I think.
Ready Product Principle number 23 is the entrepreneur, the founder, is the first hero in the product journey. If you want to create breakthrough products, even in an existing large enterprise, you need to think and act like an entrepreneur.
Of course, everyone's going to have their own challenges, and certainly it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it successfully, mind you. There's lots of people that try, but successfully doing it is a real challenge. For myself personally, I see the challenges that I've been facing and still face broadly broken up into two different groups. One being traditional, more business challenges, where it's challenge of having enough knowledge, having the right connections, having the right network, doing the right things from a business perspective. Generally, I find those challenges are fairly easy to overcome, especially with the availability of information on the internet. Great tools such as meetups and other types of things. In the Toronto area, meetups is quite an active community for people trying to get together and network in unofficial sort of meetings. That sort of stuff, I feel you can logic your way through that. You can work your way through. You just about focusing yourself and trying to find the right answer. The other challenge, the other bucket of challenges, I would say, are more psychological, personal challenges. And those challenges, I think, are things that the entrepreneurial community and the may understand implicitly, but the community outside of entrepreneurs don't really understand at all. And this is something that I believe it's a bit of a faux pas for a lot of people to talk about, because everybody, when they look back at how great their startup careers were, it's a lot more fun to talk about how great things were and how successful things were, and it's a lot more difficult to open up the books to your own, private challenges with what's happening. And there are some great guys who are doing this, but it's not as open as I would like it to be. So for me, there's a lot of psychological challenges with it. Simple things to start off with. The biggest thing that I think you have to be aware of as an entrepreneur is this idea of cognitive dissonance. The idea that you can believe that your startup or your abilities are at a certain level. You could believe that your idea is fantastic and that everybody should like it. But you have to, at some point, reconcile that with reality. And this is the first, I think, hurdle that entrepreneurs who haven't been indoctrinated with this will have to overcome. They'll have to really take that kind of reality pill at some point and come to and be able to look at life through that reality and be able to open themselves up to the facts as they present themselves. Once you can start to understand this idea of cognitive dissonance and this idea that you as a your psychology is going to want you to try and ignore those difficult conversations and those difficult facts. Once you can start to try and sit down and work your way through them, then you can start doing the hard work of making sure that you're working on your own personal weaknesses. For example, if you're anxious about going out and cold calling people, or anxious about meeting new contacts at networking, you have to come to some sort of conclusion in your own mind that these things have to be done, and you have to make yourself do them in some way. Now, I'm not saying that every person is going to be the best in every area, but there are certain things as a startup entrepreneur that you just can't avoid. Sales is absolutely one of those things. Whether if you're doing direct sales or if you're selling a web or mobile product online through marketing and other types of things, there's a heck of a lot of selling you need to do. So if you're not great at that, and if you're scared of that, you better start learning how to get better at it.
Ready Product Principle number 33 is: product work can be lonely work, but it doesn't have to be. Join meetup groups, associations, and attend camps, hackathons, and other events for inspiration, education, and a sense of community.
1997, what we heard when we were at our training in 1997 of pragmatic marketing was the biggest complaint of product managers was we don't have enough time for the strategic activities. We get too much caught up in tactical distractions. So let me ask here for the ones who said that they were product managers or worked in product management. This issue ring true at all? Sound familiar? Yeah, got some heads nodding. So that's 1997. And you know what's next? We're going to fast forward to 2015. So 2015, Pragmatic Marketing does their annual survey. What's on the top in terms of complaints of product managers? We need more resources to deal with the day-to-day tactical activities. Now, you just told me that we have a product owner now to deal with some of these day-to-day tactical issues, right? So I found this interesting, and we could say, okay, well, maybe the Pragmatic Marketing Group is bent more towards traditional product managers. You look at the 280 Group, their survey is saying the same thing. 57.4% say product managers are too tactically focused, not strategic enough, and those using Agile, 69.9%, say product manager and product owner are the same person. So basically, what this is saying is same problem. One more data point for the Product Management Association of Los Angeles. Actual time allocation, 64% tactical, 34% strategic. Ideal allocation, 50-50. So let me again check in with the group here. So whether you're a product manager or a product owner, how many people would say they spend more than 50% of their energy supporting tactical activities? Okay, about half of you. And how many would say that they spend 50% or more supporting strategic activities? Just a very small few, okay? And you can probably see where I'm going here, right? Maybe it's not a matter of roles or methodologies, as somebody was saying, but maybe it's a matter of focus, right?
You need to focus that 5% on strategic.
Yeah.
To be very effective.
Definitely. So again, we're back to 1997. Craig Stull, president of Pragmatic Marketing. And what he was saying to us, green kind of trainees, is you have to make time to get out of the office. You can't understand the customer inside your own four walls. The answer is out there. So how many people in the product manager role, because we heard that that's your role to be external facing, voice of the customer, understanding the customer. How many of you think you spend enough time interfacing with customers to really understand their needs properly? Never enough, eh? Okay. A couple hands went out there, okay. Again, fast forward to 2015. As I was mentioning, I did the interview with Kim Phelan, VP at ClearFit, and I always ask my interviewee people, if you could go back If they're old like me, I ask them 20 years. If they're a little younger, like Sasha was today, I say 10 years. But if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, what advice would you give your younger self? And look what she said without even skipping a beat. You can listen to it.
Ready product principle number 9 is humans connect through authentic stories. Used correctly, content marketing is a cost-effective way to connect with your target audience.
But just how do we get our message out into a global world? And then we can, as what you would prefer, then we can talk about some of the other topics as well, too. Does that sound like a reasonable approach? Away we go. Okay, so for us, this is actually our world. This is a contributed site where radio stations all over the world kind of light themselves up on the map. So it kind of shows where our potential customers are. So it's kind of daunting for a company in Nova Scotia. We have a niche product. It's when we try to get people exposed to our product worldwide, we go into a very, you only need to sell a few into each country. That's our market. But somehow we have to get a hold of people in those countries, make them aware of us. It's very challenging. In the United States, it's not too bad because at least there's enough of a sizable industry there that there's communications magazines that go out to those people so we can talk to them. But as you go around the rest of the world, multiple languages, we have a very low budget, tiny team. You can't go out and buy a list. You can't go out and buy a list. Sir, could I please have the list of all international broadcasters between X power and this power? The list doesn't exist, so we have to do it all the hard way. So I don't know if any of you, there's a lot of talk about content marketing. I don't know if any of you hear that term. Every now and then in marketing there's the buzzword, and that is the one, whether it's inbound marketing or content marketing. But there is a company that's called HubSpot. There's a few in this business. HubSpot I like because they tell their story so well. I actually practice what they preach, and so you'll see slides like this if you go to their website. And as a marketer internationally, we have to deal with this at the same time dealing with the international problem. Is the whole way that people buy things has changed. By the time they pick up the phone to call one of our sales reps, they're well down the pipe as to looking at specs and getting an assessment for references. So if there's any big nightmare I have is that they might get so far down the road they don't even pick up the phone to call us, so they just may bypass us and put other people on their list because we didn't do a good enough job of getting our word.
Ready product principle number 12 is product manager is a title. Product management can be a department. But for maximum impact, make product management a core component of your cultural DNA.
I think the lean revolution has been really interesting. I did do the monolithic 60-page marketing requirements document.
MRD.
The MRD, the one that I recall, and you know, I worked on it with some friends. So if they're listening, I'm sure they're cringing too. I wrote the marketing requirements document for what it would eventually become BlackBerry Messenger 5.0.
BBM.
At BlackBerry, and
Awesome.
It was this just enormous thing that was based on me evaluating all these other messenger clients out there and taking in some feedback and walking through features, and it was exactly like we all know it was, which is that engineering took it and said, okay, we'll see you in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of came back with something that sort of looked like we had in the MRD, but of course the market had evolved by the time we launched it, and there were challenges in that product. It's interesting now to look at the way that companies build things. I do want to just highlight one thing that, in reference to what you said with respect to large companies versus startups, and I think it's really important. I am one of these people who fundamentally believes that innovation and entrepreneurship can happen everywhere. I have, without naming names, I have worked for large companies which at times were incredibly innovative, creative, brave, broke down walls. You know, maybe they weren't lean and agile and from a process perspective the way we think of it today, but this is also a while back. Mm-hmm. And I've also worked for what you would expect in a larger company, which is things get lost and mired in process, which is used as a way of absolving people the responsibility to think about the customer and make decisions. And that's what frustrates people about stereotypically large companies. Conversely, I've worked at some very, very innovative small companies where we rolled up our sleeves. we were just completely embedded in what we were doing in terms of the value of the product we were building and the potential for how it could change the world. I mean, I would basically say NIMI was a great example of that and continues to be so. And I actually worked for a startup that was, just to illustrate it, I think it was 5 people, and it was one of the most bureaucratic places I'd ever been in my entire life. And so, you know, I think that reflects as well in the way that the product management process is rolled out. And it's funny that I use that words because product managers have one loyalty, which is to the company's success. They are not loyal to a process. In fact, good product managers break process all the time. They're just very transparent about doing it, right? And so I think if you're willing to play that role, no matter where you are, and do whatever it takes to sort of say, look, information has changed. We have to put our preconceived notions and sunk costs aside and relook at what we're doing, make sure we're doing the right thing, the merging of our unique abilities and what's happening in the market, then we have a better chance of being successful. So that thinking, I think, is what's...
Today's podcast was brought to you by Eigenworks. Eigenworks specializes in win-loss analysis and customer development as a service. Get candid feedback to improve your sales approach, uncover competitive intelligence, and help you pivot as needed. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ready Product Radio, part of the Ready PDM network. This is when most podcasters ask you to leave a review on iTunes if you like the show. My only request is if you found the show entertaining, inspiring, or informative, please share it with a colleague or friend who may feel the same way. Also, note that the views expressed in this episode do not necessarily reflect my views or the views of the Ready PDM network. If you want yourself or your product to be ready, then keep your eyes on your markets, your ears to your customers, your mind on their experiences, both good and bad, and finally, keep your hearts in your products. Until next time, thank you for listening. You can contact us on Twitter at Ready Product Radio. That's RDYPRODUCTRADIO. And on the web at www.readyproductradio.com.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.